Hey Lungi, Coach Brandon here, and today we'll go over a few of your exercises that you sent over to me recently. We're going to go ahead and start off with a deadlift, I believe, but let's go ahead and get it started. Actually, we'll go ahead and start with the bench press. So just like you said, I would like this to be about 3 inches off the chest. So we're talking somewhere around there. About that far off the chest is where I want the rack to be. Let's go ahead and decrease the rack setting quite a bit. So the rack height that you're at currently is not really putting you in a position where we're challenging our sticking points. Instead, we're, if anything, capitalizing on the points we're already strongest at, which is not quite the training intent we're looking for. So let's get pretty close to the chest, about 3 inches. That'll be perfect. And let's go ahead and get a side angle or the same angle video that you got with that video on our workup sets as well at that pin height, just to make sure, yep, that's 3 inches. Even measure it if you have to. Let's try to be fairly exact there. No big deal that you did like that this week, though, or last week. But, yeah. So looking at the next bench video. So there is something I really want to capitalize on in coming weeks, and that is that we need to go a little slower in the eccentric portion. A pretty common training thing that I just want you to improve on a little bit is just going slower with the setups, going slower on the eccentric, being very slow and intentful. It's okay to add a little bit of time under how long you're under tension. But with the bench press, for example, the reps that we get in the most unstacked position, the least optimal position, are also the ones that we go the fastest on the eccentric. And right now we have a bit of an issue where we end up in what I call the skull crusher fault. Instead of being optimally stacked like so, we end up in almost a skull crusher position, but on our chest, and the barbell is quite a bit above where our elbows are instead of being optimally stacked. It's a pretty easy fix. We just got to control the eccentric. Instead of dropping it 1 second through the eccentric, let's go ahead and make it 2 seconds. Go nice and slow, and I promise you this will make you much, much better at handling heavier load, because once you get to that heavier load, we have to have the exact perfect touching point. We have to be optimally stacked, and that way we can express all of our strength rather than being an unstacked position, only being able to express part of it. But looking at the video here, you'll notice that all reps had a little bit of that skull crusher fault, but at the same time, the ones that you went the fastest had it the worst. So you look here, elbow, barbell. What we need to do is either bring these elbows a little further out, which is actually what I prefer. Bring these elbows a little further out and not tuck quite as much as you currently are. So instead of tucking this much and end up being in the skull crusher position, let's go ahead and bring them out a little bit and end up in this strong position right here instead of over tucking like so. So we're just tucking a little too aggressively right now, and I think that's a big part of why we're in that skull crusher fault. We've already dropped the touching point down a little bit, and I think that's an optimal touching point for you. We just have to have the elbows adapt to said touching point and be in a more stacked position, because right now we're just over tucking quite a bit, and that's reducing the amount of force you can produce in the bottom position. So let's go ahead and work on that quite a bit, as you can see in the video, and you'll also notice that the ones that you go the fastest on the way down, like I said before, are the ones that have the most unstacked position. So looking at the third rep, I think it was, that was probably the fastest. Yeah, it was.
4.
Yeah, so that one was probably the worst, the most unstacked. Very, very unstacked, and we dropped in the hole very quickly. So the speed that I'd like you to start dropping in the hole at is literally like this. Boom. Explode up. This is going to have you let you have much better control, much better hypertrophy. It's going to have you in a more consistent motor pattern, and on top of that, it's going to help repattern some of the things that we need to get in a more stacked position. Yeah, real easy fixes though. We just got to be very intentful in the next few weeks and really focus on it, and not let that skull crusher fall happen anymore. But yeah, just controlling the eccentric a little better, and then coming out of that overly tucked elbow position. Real easy.
go, girl. Get tight. Tight lats. Yep. Diesel. Nice.
So the reason that you'll notice on a lot of the deadlift videos recently, we're ending up, instead of being neutral and tall at the top, we're ending up in a little bit of extended position. Now, the reason this is because instead of pulling the slack out by getting our hips closer to the load, instead we just sit back. So currently we're just sitting back. When you sit back like that to create tension, it ends up being so that we almost have to use our lumbar or our spinal rectors almost exclusively, and it ends up in an overextended position. Anybody that has issues at the top of a deadlift, whether it's ending up in extended position, the lumbar portion of your spine, or whether it's just having troubles locking out completely, it's always because of the setup. So what, like the consistent going too fast with a lot of your setups and eccentrics throughout your lifts. This is one that kind of shows that as well. We're rushing the setup just a little bit, and that's making it so that instead of your hips slowly getting closer to load, if anything, they're getting a little further away or just staying in the exact same spot. So we're not getting in a more advantageous position as we build tension like I'd like you to. Instead, we're getting in, if anything, a little less advantageous position, which is making the lockout a lot tougher. So looking at it once more.
Let's go, girl. Get tight. Tight lats. Yep. Diesel. Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, so you'll notice there, it went from your hips being this close to the load, and ideally, as we build tension, the proper mechanics are knees to plates, chest up, and hips closer to load. The hips need to continually get closer, 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 closer as you slowly build tension, but instead we quickly jerked our hips further away from the load, which made it a lot tougher on your back and the lockout position. Awesome. There we go. Now, luckily, you're very strong at this point. Your strength is looking incredible, so you're just able to power through it like it was no big deal. But I promise you, that weight is going to be baby weight. You're going to be able to do that 5 times easy, and a lot bigger numbers will come if we just refine that pattern so you can express your full strength. Because even though you're looking really strong right now, you're a lot stronger than your numbers perceive, or that lift, for example, perceives. So just working on a setup is going to be everything. Let's videotape every single sumo set next week, every single one, and really challenge yourself to take it slower on the eccentric. And keep in mind, just think about this, get that same angle video and look at it in between sets and ask yourself, are my hips getting closer to the load? Am I bringing my knees to plates? Is my chest coming up? Is this the correct tension building pattern? So, and the biggest thing for you is just going to be actually getting your hips closer to the load. It's going to be so incredibly beneficial, and it's going to have much larger numbers on that bar. But yeah, so that's kind of the main thing. We're also causing just a little bit of backgrounding because of the hips getting further away. But again, that'll just be all fixed by correcting that setup just a little bit, or the tension building portion just a little bit. Now with this guy here, the biggest thing that I want to capitalize on is that we're keeping in mind it's a 2-count pause, 1 inch off the ground on the way down, and right now it's about a 1 count, and we're not quite an inch off the ground. So the inch off the ground is very specific because this actually helps us to refine our pattern. This is a type of pause that actually helps greatly with building better form. It helps to create better tension, and does a series of things like that, along with helps your speed and power off the floor. So that's kind of the ideas behind it. So on the way down, we just got to go a little slower on the eccentric portion, and then also the only way we'll know that we're exactly an inch off the floor is if we go really fucking slow. We got to go incredibly slow, almost like a tempo, like 2 to 3 count on the eccentric kind of thing, and then making sure that we're exactly an inch off the ground. Pause for 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then down and up. That's really, really important. The idea with the pauses, doesn't matter what lift it is that ideally we are at a complete stop. No motion up, no motion down, complete dead stop. We're working our ass off to keep that at a dead stop. And we're going to be, if anything, a little bit longer than the pausing amount. So we really want to focus on being exactly an inch off the ground if we can be. 1 to 2 inches is kind of the area that I'd like you to be at. And then really focusing on, by the time you come to a dead stop, it's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, down and up. So let's really, really take advantage of that so we can get the intended training stimulus. Things are looking really good, though. You definitely didn't lose any strength over Christmas break. I can tell you that your body, if anything, it might have been a slight benefit, weirdly. I can tell that you're coming back very, very strong. But if anything, some of the things that we worked on in the past have kind of regressed just a little bit in terms of patterns. So let's really work on those in coming weeks. Strength is there and then some. You're looking incredibly strong. Really like what I'm seeing. But once we refine those patterns, it's going to be really exciting because, I mean, 400s plus in the deadlift, 200 plus in the bench. I see really, really big numbers for you in the future if we can just refine things just a little bit and be incredibly intentful with training. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm really excited for things coming up in the future. And I'd really like as many deadlift and bench videos as possible next week because I really want to get into it and review things the best I can. But let me know if you have any questions.